everyone. My name is Scott Cameron, and I'm here just to sort of introduce Teacher's Workshop to you and walk you through the courses I created. Um, I kind of talk to you a little bit about myself first. This is the format of the course where you'll see me talking with a video. And then, as you can see, it's a screen recording, so I can open up Word documents and different things like that. So I first, so just so you know what you're looking at. First, I want to start with why I sort of started creating courses. I'm currently a teacher. I've been teaching since 2004. Taught in a couple of different school districts, private school. I kind of started in private schools, and now I've been teaching most of my career in the same public school in New Jersey. And I teach mostly seniors, but I've taught all grade levels, in high school at least, freshmen, sophomores, juniors. Actually, this year they threw me, I don't know if this happens to you as a teacher, but they threw me a section of juniors because somebody's on leave for some just one half, actually half of the year, which is interesting. So I got to teach these students for half a year, and then I pick up a couple extra electives next semester. So, and I've also taught a variety of different, actually some of what I will talk about in the course, I got the experience of teaching electives. So some of the information that I'll talk to you about is information that I got from teaching electives, like media studies. Filmmaking is something I've been teaching for a while now. Creative writing, so I have a whole section on creative writing. So I've sort of pulling this technical knowledge from a variety of different places. I actually teach a course, an interesting course called Racial Literacy. So there's actually a college level textbook called Race in America that we use as the foundation for that course, where we take students through 8 different units like education, criminal justice, things like that. So there's that course, which I teach as an elective. That's actually more of sociology in the history department, but I was invited to teach that class, and I love it. So I taught in the inner city in West Philly for a little while, even though now, like I said, I teach at a public school. I also taught at an all-boys school early in my career, had a couple leave positions. So I actually, a big part of the reason that I started this course, well, one is because I found a lot of professional development to be, for all teachers, we'll say, where, you're sort of learning these really broad concepts. And I wanted to create a course that is just for English teachers. Now, while I say that, I actually created 2 courses, one for any teacher at any grade level from kindergarten all the way to high school. And then I sort of had another course specifically for English language arts teachers. And so that's basically, I saw a gap there where I really just like talking to other English teachers. I like talking about literature. And I really like hearing about what other English teachers are doing in their classroom. So I wanted to basically provide professional development where I just kind of talk to you about all the different creative things that I'm trying to do to get my students interested in learning. And over the years, I've always asked my students, because this is sort of where I'm going. The other reason I started this is because early in my career, I felt like I was really struggling to become a good English teacher. I wanted to go on the fast track to become the best possible teacher I could. I went through a lot that I feel like I didn't really have to go through, because my college, while I had a really great education, I went to Rutgers University. I feel like on the literature side, I had an excellent education where we really sunk our teeth into the books that we were reading, the close reading, and I feel really well prepared with even the variety of different literature that I've read from different voices all around the world. And actually that's a big thing that I bring into the course as well, as the actual literature that I teach in my courses, and some of that is from what I studied in college. So I'm grateful for all that. But as far as preparing to become a teacher, a lot of it was theory and not really practical. You got a little advice here and there. There's one course I took with actually my boss, that person that became my boss at the school I work at now. She's retired, but she taught a course there called Methods and Issues in Teaching English, and it was very much like, these are the things that we're going to deal with on a daily basis. But it was a one semester, like college classes are, right? It was a one semester course. And it did a lot, but it's sort of scratched the surface. And I feel like once you become a teacher, you should really just encounter professional development that is from a person in your field that's doing the same things that you're doing, encountering the same challenges that you're encountering.
and looking at kids who are apathetic, who are not interested in learning, who are distractions in class, who are misbehaving, all of those challenges that most people, at least, unless you're working your magic right away, your first couple of years of teaching, really struggled to reach. And even now, I think even if you're a fantastic teacher and you're performing there and you're walking around the class and giving super energy, really creative assignments, your content level, there are still those kids that are hard to reach. And so I just feel like that's something that's important to learn as far as literature is concerned. Of course, we can all have techniques about how to reach those kids for all teachers. That's what I sort of get into with my other course. But I feel like it's really enjoyable and fun to talk about writing and thesis statements and podcasts, video essays, analytical essays, rubrics, right? All that language, you're starting to see what I'm doing. All that language of different things that and the writing program in general, when do you teach grammar, and how do you do close reading, how do you teach literary techniques, all that different stuff that comes up in our day-to-day challenges. I kind of walk you through what I do in my class to make those things fun, to simplify them, to make it easy. I think I worked not smart but hard when I was just starting out of my career, and sometimes I feel that way all the time now, where I find out something or find a way to do things, or I ask my students what they need as students that would help things be making them easier for them, and that's really why I'm here, is to kind of take those students. So some of the courses that I'll teach, which I'll take you through in a second, really focus on those early beginning years in teaching and some of the struggles that we face there, but then also some of the things that even I'm, as a veteran teacher, sort of encounter. If you've been teaching, I've had people take my course that have been teaching for over 20 years, and they've said they got really great, wonderful ideas out of the course. And some of that's from me reading and looking at things online, having conversations with my colleagues. But lo and behold, that's the course. So before I begin to talk about the course, in case you don't know, I do have a podcast, a weekly. I try to make it weekly. Sometimes things come up. I get sick. I got 3 kids. And that's the other, before I forget, talking about my kids reminded me that my other kind of objective is not just to make, to help us become the teachers that we always wanted to be, to really love teaching, to go into school, to be excited to be there, not dreading those certain students or that certain class, the after lunch class. I remember early in my career really dreading, or the first period class where they're bored. But it's also to get to really get the students to love learn, to create projects where we're not working hard, where we're not taking work home because you have kids, because you have friends, a life, that you like to travel, you like to live, right? We're teachers, that we're not lawyers, we're not working 80-hour weeks. Even though I might have been doing that early in my career, it's sort of again why I created this course, because I don't want new teachers to get burned out and work 80 hours a week. I don't want veteran teachers to bring work home. I want it to be something where we can just work, just come to work, and not have all this stress. We're grading essays. I think particularly with English, we're dealing with all this essay grading, which makes our jobs particularly challenging. So I kind of walk you through all the different techniques that I have as far as how I give feedback, whether that be written feedback or a rubric checklist, or verbal feedback. When I return essays, I have a whole system for how I return essays, how I ask students to revise their essays, to set goals for themselves. So the whole way that we teach writing, I think we should be just reflecting on it. My intention with this course is to not say you should be doing, this is what the research says. That's what we always get in professional development. The research says this. Some of the research backs up what I do, but mostly it's just my experiences and learning from my students what works best for them. And I'm never going to say, like, you have to do it this way. Actually, a big part of the class is me just asking you how you do what you do in your class. And that's the question. So each section will have questions that you respond. You'll be able to see other teachers' responses. So you'll be able to know how I teach how I approach a certain topic. in relation to teaching, but also how a bunch of other teachers. So you can spend a bunch of time, depends on how much time you want to spend taking the course, but you can hear me talk about it, open up different files, download all the files that I'll show you, you can download. But that's a big part of it is transforming you as a teacher to get to rethink all the things that you do and just get ideas for different projects and ideas. Transforming your students to being not interested because they're a science kid or the athlete or whatever it is, to actually loving. There's something I'm trying now, for instance, called free literacy blocks, where you can get kids who like reading or doing anything to basically pursue that interest once a week with a bigger project in mind. So I have a whole section for that. So just trying to get new, fresh ideas for how to keep kids completely focused on reading, consuming good quality information, providing them with resources that are quality resources, thinking about literature as far as not just the classics, but also podcasts, short essays, TED Talks can be literary. There's all different kinds of sort of literary projects, like the 1619 project that kind of comes to mind, or different podcasts like Serial are highly literary. So thinking about all these different video, I think, can be literary as well. So I'll talk about, again, my experiences with filmmaking. I taught film appreciation too. I forgot that one. I taught film appreciation. So I bring some of that knowledge to the table in my course. So anyway, I'm still introducing myself. The podcast that I have on a weekly basis is called The Joys of Teaching Literature. I have over 126 episodes. But again, I try to keep that updated on a weekly basis. So if you want to sort of know more about me before you take the course, or know more about my style, or just get some free professional development without paying for the course, you can kind of listen to my podcast. But the course is really where you can take away material, like download the projects that I give and sort of tweak them for your own class, get the links to all the different websites. It's just the whole package. I also have a Teachers Pay Teachers store with a bunch of products in there. I try to put as many of them as I can into the course, so you don't have to pay for any of those if you're on Teachers Pay Teachers. So you're getting like hundreds of dollars worth of my resources on Teachers Pay Teachers for free in the course, because you can just download them and use them in your class however you'd like. So that's my podcast. This is my website where I have the Teachers Pay Teachers store, a link to the courses, my podcast blog. So that's just a little bit about me. So as far as the course is concerned, so this is where you maybe have already encountered my course website, theteachersworkshop.teachable.com, and I have 2 different courses on there, and this is the one for English teachers. And so basically just here to kind of talk you through some of these topics. So teaching Shakespeare, the language of Shakespeare, I'll take you through. I teach Hamlet. I've taught Macbeth before, Romeo and Juliet. And so I sort of talk about how to make the language easy, how to contextualize it, where you can talk about it in a way that makes sense. Different watching videos of performances to help students really understand Shakespeare on a basic level. All of those sort of challenges with teaching Shakespeare. This one, let's look at this one. This one has a free preview if you'd like to take it, because this will give you an idea of what it looks like. Let me minimize myself. Yeah, so you basically just go in here.
What are the biggest challenges?
And listen to me talk. So as you can see, if I could just mute this, I have different points that I'm going to hit in the lecture. I'm taking you through different. This is called a paper commentary key, because I'm talking about how to grade essays and make it sort of quick and easy. This is my system. I'm sort of walking you through my system of grading, where I just put a little letter instead of writing out the full comment. I talk about how I have conferences and how I make time in class to have short, quick conferences with kids where they're revising their work and I'm walking around the room. So I kind of walk you through my whole writing program in this. And so you can see there's 2 different videos here. Sometimes they're shorter videos, sometimes they're longer. You have questions that I ask you to respond to. You can, at the end of the course, get a certificate with professional development hours. This is another thing that you can do this for an hour or 2 if you don't have a lot of time and only a couple of topics are interesting to you, or you can go full throttle, and I think it's 27 hours. But you can do whatever you want. So whenever you finish the course, you just kind of email me and say that you're done, and I'll figure out how many hours, thinking about what's fair. I can calculate it pretty quickly and give you a certificate for that many hours that you can then give to your supervisor or your boss to get you credit. Now, obviously that you look for prior approval, because some states have different programs that need to be up, like New York. I think they asked me to pay like $600 to be a certified professional development provider. I didn't do that. I might do it eventually, but so if you just kind of look into whether or not you're actually going to get credit for the course. I think there's value in it without the credit, because when you think about it, whatever course costs, you pay a monthly fee if you want. You think about your college degree, right? It's really not that much, and when you think about how much like time you're going to save, think about how valuable your time is, and also again the idea that you're getting something out of it where you're enjoying your job, enjoying your students, having good relationships with your students, all these really great benefits of taking the course. Then it's I think worth it. When I think about the college degree that I paid for, I think it would be worth it. And again, in addition to all these resources here that you can download, so you can download them here, or I actually put them all in one huge zip file to make it really easy. So you download this zip file, all the files come shooting out onto your computer, and they're organized by folder, and each of the folders correspond to these little topics that you see. So it's like, all right, I'm on this lecture, let me open this folder, and you have them downloaded. You don't have to keep clicking and downloading and wasting a bunch of time there. So that's how that works, and it's really Teachable is really easy to use. And so you just write your little comment that responds to my questions, and you can see here that all these different teachers responded to my questions. So you can get more ideas about how to teach writing from other teachers in addition to myself. So that's how that kind of works. So then, just looking at the other topics, that's still playing. I just wanted to walk you through that too. Because we talked about Shakespeare, inspiring students to love reading. I have a whole system of I don't do reading checks. I don't do reading quizzes. I have notes. So the kids basically just take notes on the book they read. I know you think I'm crazy. People say, like, how do you get the kids to read the book? But I've had so many kids come to me and say, Mr. Cameron, this is the first class I've actually ever read a book for. I'm sorry, I'm kind of embarrassed to admit that to you, but the way that you do it makes it so easy to read. And I make sure that they have enough time to read. So I kind of walk you through that system of what it means to kind of take notes, because they don't have to take it as they read. They can take notes after they read or after a chapter. And it's really open and a fun thing to do, and it's a valuable thing to do. So I kind of talk through that. Exciting and engaging class activities. So I basically just talk about all the different sort of ways I differentiate with group posters, one-pagers, sketch notes, mind maps, graphic organizers. That's what we used to call them. All the different ways that I basically have kids like working in pairs or working alone, in all the different situations there, to make things visual or auditory, even when we're listening to something or recording something. So all the different activities. I always have student work to show you. So sometimes, without their names, of course, I'll show you like a visual that they created or examples of thesis statements that I had them. I'll show you my online course that I have for my class, different things. So I use all examples from my teaching experience so that you can actually, instead of, because I thought that in professional development, again, it's like you're talking really broadly, and it's like I'm actually going to show you what I'm doing in my class. And so that's the benefit of this. Classroom and time management. So all these little tricks that I do, I have a couple blogs about this and podcasts where I talk about how I manage class, how I return papers, how I make transitions in class. Over the years, I've just learned different things to make that whole thing easy, balancing joy and rigor. So how to make things like tough and serious, but also really fun. Teaching as performance. I kind of talk about the importance of like, like using my hands here, but like walking around the room, how to sort of read something out loud to make it really interesting for students on all those different things. My grading system, how I grade, how I weight grades. I think all teachers have a different kind of system, but I kind of explain the logic of grading and how it's symbolic and how I don't want it to be about grades. But I also just explain my system of how I actually collect work too. I collect it in bundles so that when they're writing the essay, they can hand in all this work that's all stapled together, and it's scaffolded notes is how I do it. I also have a system called whole novel activities, where I do all of my activities. So I don't go chapter by chapter, I go topic by topic. So we can sort of explore these different themes say 10 or 12 different themes in one novel where we're just really shooting through it. I can do different activities with the topics. I have questions that they can answer, but they read the whole book in its entirety. I'm talking a lot, but that's basically what you'll get in this section here, whole novel activity. So I kind of talk about that system as I go because that's basically how I teach. Outside the classroom is about extracurricular activities and dealing with parents, guidance counselors, and my general philosophy with making life easy there too, right? How to answer emails and just handle all the different expectations that we have outside the classroom. Exciting teaching, so that's again more oriented for your first year teachers, although some of it can be useful for teachers who have been around for a while too. This is for your I've been around for 5 or 10 years, I'm getting the hang of it, but I want to do some more fun things and try to explore creative writing. I've talked a lot about the teaching of writing, so not just how to give feedback, but the actual teaching of writing in the program that I have, the frequency of the writing assignments that I give, that sort of thing. Literature and grammar. So if you're a grammar person, this is how I teach grammar. I basically always do it with close reading. So as we're doing a close reading, say I think I use the example of The Great Gatsby. We're talking about the topic of jazz, and we're looking at how the language kind of moves and how grammar sort of enables that to happen. So that's just one example. I give you different examples. The place for nonfiction, so that's where I talk about all different things like essays, podcasts, videos, and that's just the general sort of, I give you as many links, I give you so many different links for projects that I'm doing and that sort of thing, where we can make the fiction world that we talk about relevant in the real world. So that's a lot of what I do too, is okay, so we teach these sometimes really old books. How do we make them relevant and meaningful and bring them to life for our students? And nonfiction is sometimes the way to do that. And so I talk about ways that I sort of integrate it within a unit, but also as their own unit, as their own project, where you can actually treat that nonfiction as literature. Differentiation, activities, and note-taking. So again, all those different activities and student work that I go through there. I'll give you a PowerPoint on literary techniques. And I think I might have given you an actual video that I gave to my students when we were remote about the different literary. I think there's a list of 15 or so that I go over with my students. Poetry and prosody, rhythm and rhyme. So that's where I go over stressed and unstressed. And I'm not sort of teaching that lesson, but I'm sort of giving all the activities that I go over with how to scan a lot of poetry and actually how to make students really love and appreciate the art form of writing, say, an iambic pentameter or iambic dimeter or whatever it is. Poetry, so short fiction and point of view, I give you my whole short fiction unit there with all those different short stories from Don DeLillo and different writers, and I basically talk about how I use short fiction as a way of teaching the novel and these bigger sort of, it's mostly about narrative voice and narrative mode, who's telling the story. So I give you these different stories that I use to sort of talk about limited omniscient narrators, first-person narrator, unreliable narrator, that sort of thing. Then LGBTQ plus literature. I talk about the different actually, for that one, I actually just picked poems because I'm like, if I just talk about a novel that you haven't read, what's the use of that, right? So I picked out different poems that I do in my class, and I kind of talk about how I discuss the meaning of those poems within that lens. So that's an interesting one because I feel like that's something that a lot of teachers, we were talking about college, we were never trained on, that perspective, and so. But some of the poems that I do in class they're challenging, they're brilliant, as literature in their own right, and then it just happens to teach this really valuable lesson about love and tolerance and acceptance and all those different things we want to teach our students. Podcast is literature. I basically talk about all the different podcasts that I teach as literature, but also teaching podcasts as something like a student project that students can do themselves, that can produce themselves. Black Lives Matter in literature, that's all the basic literature that I think I made that a couple of years ago after the George Floyd incident because I was just watching the news we have to talk about this more. It's always been something I talked about in my class. So that's why I just made a quick video and I was like, this is all the Black literature that I do in my class with poetry and novels and short stories and James Baldwin and all of that. So I just kind of packaged it up. That was an hour long because it was, just something I felt was necessary at the time. But also really valuable for all time. I feel like it's something that we should have been doing to begin with. I think there was a sort of renewed interest that we got in a little bit of trouble for, right? But that's okay because we're teachers and we do the right thing. And teaching literature from all different points of view is just so important. So I kind of walk you through what I do there, all the different novels and literature that I teach there. Video essay, again, I'm making that as simple as possible. I know making videos can be a challenge, but as the years go along, it's becoming easier and easier. So that's basically what I talk about is how to the basic like rules of thumb for making videos. And how you can allow for creative projects and adaptations is a project that I do with film where they take a story and create a new sort of modern interpretation of it, and they set it in the high school in the current day and age. Different projects like that are super fun, they're funny, they're always a good time. I talked about whole novel activities already, project-based learning. All the project-based learning that I do, I had something called the Creativity Project, the Hope Project. For years I did something called the Education Project. So basically just explaining what that is. It's this monster. I don't want to spend too much time here taking you through all of it. But yeah, I have like weeks. I've transformed it in different ways. Now I'm calling it free literacy blocks where I stop every week. But the project-based learning that I'm describing here, they actually we would stop for an entire week to read personal narratives, and then for another week we explored political sort of essays, social essays I call them, and podcasts and videos. It was really open where they could just kind of explore whatever they wanted. I pointed them in certain directions. I gave them certain essays to read, but I said you can read whatever you want. We packaged it up in the end of the year with a project and a video essay. So that's basically where I walk you through how I and also in the spirit of project-based learning, have an audience for it and how I allow them to share their projects with people in the school in the hallways and through technology and different things like that. And that kind of brings us to the last one where I actually made this during the pandemic because I felt like there was a need to really jump into what the coolest and best and easiest tech tools are. And I don't use anything that fancy because I literally we got emailed lists of like hundreds of websites during that period. If you remember, when I was teaching completely remote from my own house, and they were like, hey, like check out all this stuff that you can do online. It was really overwhelming. So I tried to pick like, I think 4 or 5 different major, a lot of it's Google. And again, I'm showing you what my students produced in my classes with a Padlet and with Google Drawings and all these different technologies. This is basically my favorite tech tools, and my argument with all of them is this actually helps them learn. It's not just like a fancy thing that's a distraction, but it actually will help them organize their thoughts and their thinking in groups, and it's easy to use, easy for them to use, easier for them to share, and all that. So that's where I walk you through that. So that's the whole course. And then, so I'm not going to waste your time because I feel like I've talked for a while now on my other course. But if you are interested in my other course, I basically I made the framework of this course. Well, it's called Support, Satisfaction, and Success for Every Student. So it's basically trying to address the challenge that every single student can be inspired to learn. Now, obviously, there's some are a little more challenging than others. Some come to our class are A students, and they're going to get an A, right? And other students, are in the middle there where we can inspire them and get them going. But then there's obviously those kids that we really want to prioritize that are just not interested in, they think they're not interested in literature because they like science or because for a variety of different reasons. They have a lot going on at their house with their family. They're working, they're injured, they're sick. And there's just so many different reasons why kids could like not want to do school. And every year I find more and more reasons to really have sympathy for our kids. And when I've learned about their lives, it's just they're in really difficult positions a lot of the time. So we want to kind of focus on supporting them, providing them satisfaction from learning, and hopefully getting them to be successful. So those are the kind of 3 different ways that I organized this course. I also organized it by using sports as a metaphor for how we should approach teaching. Like, how can we be more like coaches? How can students be more like athletes? How do coaches approach sports? Is it similar or different from what we do?
as teachers. There are a lot of similarities there because I was a coach myself. I was an athlete most of my life. I was I was an athlete up until fairly recently when I was playing soccer and pulled my ACL or tore my ACL and my meniscus at the same time and had to get a huge surgery. And I don't think I'm playing soccer anymore. But either way, I love sports, and I think that there is this opportunity to really treat students get excited for games. I don't know if we'll ever get our kids to be excited for a test like they're going to be excited for a game, but maybe. I think if we give them things to be excited about, they will look forward to coming to our class and completing those assignments that they pursue on their own because they chose to. And that's a big thing that I'm doing with free literacy blocks is really giving them that opportunity to pursue whatever it is they want. So if you just glance at it, that's the other course. And again, it's not just for English teachers, it's for all teachers. The learning and testing balance, the question of homework, note taking and differentiation, grades and what they represent. So I've touched on some of these things in my other course, but these are sort of bigger ways of looking at it for all students in any grade level. Publishing and displaying student work outside the classroom, independent and choice work, when to teach with technology. So there's all these different sort of topics that activity and time management. Obviously, that can apply to any teacher, motivating and celebrating students. All right, so there's all these different ways that the things that really can work their way into any teacher's life, daily life and daily challenges and routines. And that's really what I'm exploring in this course here. I haven't really marketed this at all. I don't have as many students in this one as I do in the other one because most of the people that I'm talking to online and with podcasts and my blogs are English teachers. But I'm hoping to get more teachers interested in that as well. So that's the course that you're getting from a teacher. That's a big part of why I started doing this because I felt like a lot of the training that I was getting as a teacher was not from another teacher, and definitely not another teacher. Maybe somebody with some teaching experience, but not in English language arts. So I'm really trying to frame it in that way where I'm revising and changing my curriculum every year. I'm giving my students surveys where they can respond to the different questions I have about what we do in class and did this work? Did you like this kind of activity? What kind of activity would you suggest? What did you like? What did you not like? Why? How can I get you to read? And reading quizzes was number one. There was like I hate taking reading quizzes. It was like 20-minute waste of time, and I felt like, why am I doing it? Why am I giving up these very valuable 20 minutes, and then in grading it? Like you want to grade it like really seriously, right? But these reading checks that the notes that I give, where they come in with their notes, I can glance at it, know whether they read or not. So just little things like that, right? I wanted to hear from another teacher what works in their classroom, and I've always wanted professional development myself. And some of the most valuable, like National Council of Teachers of English, is really valuable. There's something called Tri-States where you go and you look at other English teachers in action at another school in person. There's a lot of travel with that. You're away from your family. It's a really great thing. So I'm sort of creating this course out of the positive experiences that I've had in professional development. But I just feel like in general, I wish that other teachers would do this, and I would love to spend my in-service days doing this, right? Where you're just learning from another teacher because you're going to walk away with so many different ideas for your classroom. Actual handouts and different approaches and techniques. And again, my thinking is like, I'm just telling you about what I'm doing in my class. I've had conversations with teachers who said this and that. I've seen this, I've seen that. I'm not saying that you should do anything that I'm going to walk you through, but it's to give you ideas. It's to have you brainstorm the different things that you do in your classroom, because we're probably doing something very similar. We're probably teaching some of the same texts and the same writers. We were definitely doing the teaching of writing and giving feedback and grades and all of that. So part of the course is just for you to again maybe transform yourself, where you're getting a lot of meaning out of what you do, but working less hard, where you're making your students do the work, where it's a student-centered classroom, where they can pursue projects that you're still very involved with. Some of the days that I do project-based learning I feel like my busiest days because I'm just conferencing the entire time. But I'm doing it in a way where I'm getting to know my students.
I'm telling stories with them, hearing about their interests and the different things that they encountered other than TikTok online. Like seriously, they recommend podcasts to me and tell me about books they're reading, and different sports teams that they're interested in. They're interested in so many different things, and we never get to sit down and talk to them about it. So it's about like transforming that relationship where we are just these authority figures, and we have to do all the work and lecture and teach them literature and teach them how to write. And really, there's this way of doing it where we can do that a little bit. Of course, right? I think there's a good place for a good, solid, entertaining lecture in class. But in a world where they do have to they're going online, they're watching Netflix, they tune us out right away. And so this course is about giving them something to do where it's fun, it's meaningful, it's creative. They're thinking about their world in a different way. They're getting passionate about being a person that has relationships and has thoughts about why the world is the way that it is, their identity and who they are in the world, where they want to go and what they want to do for the rest of their lives. Just being a part of like the conversation where we just read this book. What does it mean for who you're going to be as a person and how you think about the world, and what news events are happening right now that are still related to some of these events, say that happen. We're doing it all the time when we teach Shakespeare with the politics and corruption and greed and authority and obedience and the gender roles, suicide, heartbreak. I mean, there's so many different ways of bringing our kids' lives and what they go through into the conversation, and that's really what this course is about. Is reminding you like how important this job is, and celebrating the wonderful thing that is being a critical thinker, thinking creatively, understanding these worlds like a night. Like we have no connection to that kind of experience. Like how are we shaped by these worlds that are distant from our own and unfamiliar to us, but still have brought us alive, because it made us treat people differently, and it makes us want to be better, and more passionate about solving all of the world's problems and being creative about the different solutions to our world's problems. It's not just about reading a story and talking about the characters, right? When we read a book, we're transforming the way that we think about who we are as people, how we talk to people, how we interact with people, the social customs and norms of our society. Do we agree with them? Do we accept them? And having good intellectual conversations about what it means to be a good person, but going off into the world, who do we want our kids to be? We want them to be compassionate people who think deeply about the world that they live in, and so all of what we do is about that. I think in the day to day, it gets lost sometimes because we just get into these routines and I've taught this book, so let me just do what I did last year. And I know that I really value a new idea, and I'm always willing to try something new and try something different. If it doesn't work, like I tried book clubs and it didn't work, and I'll talk about why I didn't like book clubs. But then I kind of tweaked it and I made it better and more suitable. And every year I'm trying to do something different, even though it's not, and actually my district encourages us to do it. They say take risks. If it doesn't work, you're going to work on it and reflect on it and make it better for next year. So that's what this course is about. It's about taking risks, trying something new. But I think that ultimately you'll see, you could read some of the reviews from other students that have taken my course, that they got a lot out of it and they really enjoyed it. So I'm hoping that that's the case for you, and I'm hoping that you take the course. And that's my little spiel about what we're doing here at Teachers Workshop with online courses.